using their strategies, competing strategies, and you as a strategy builder, you want the best cards, right? And how do you get the best cards? By trading. I think it's simple, but this is something that the industry is really missing. And I think you can find many other examples in MMOs or other types of games where the business model of walled gardens is tainting the game experience because of the restrictions that credit cards impose, or the greed of the try to get as much as we can from gamers without when by the restriction of not permitting them to resell their items. So I think they have their times are ending and restrictions are lifting, and they will have to follow to this new standard that we are making. So I think it's really exciting to be here in this space and talking about this.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think that, if you look at, the digital license is a very convenient thing for the Activisions and the Nintendos of the world, because, they don't really have to explain why you can't resell your stuff. Even your iTunes collections, when you die, all those songs go back to Apple. They don't have to explain it because there's really never been a concept of digital ownership. So the thing about these types of games is a lot of the value accrues to the players of the games. In traditional gaming, 100% of the value accrues to the developer of the game. You build a game in a sandbox, you put it out, you sell it on a disc for $60, or you do a free-to-play game. All the revenue goes to Clash of Clans or King or whoever. In our games, we fully expect, that's the nature of the blockchain immutable contract we have, is that we fully expect there will be secondary markets. So we're essentially competing against our own customers. Not an ideal business, but it's also just where things are going to end up. In an ideal world, you have a monopoly, you control everything, and you are the only one-way street selling. In our baseball game, there's a vibrant secondary market on OpenSea, on our own marketplace, and that affects our prices that we can sell stuff at. CryptoKitties, the same thing. The majority of the revenue that's flowed through CryptoKitties has not gone to the CryptoKitties developers. And that's fine, that's just the new paradigm we're dealing with here. So I actually think the independent developers will rule in this early stage. Again, my experience with the iPhone gaming space is this is an institutional imperative that really fights against the Activisions and the Ubisofts and the traditional publishers, and they'll talk about using blockchain, they'll talk about this, but they're probably not going to touch their cash cows, right? That's a big opportunity for developers because, again, I'll use CryptoKitties as an example. It's actually a pretty simple game mechanic, right? The breeding mechanic's been around since the 80s. If you were to put that game up on a database and just say, here's a breeding game, nobody would have been interested. It was the fact that you could breed and sell your cats that added a whole new dimension to the game. So now you take that simple example and you go look at all the simple games that have been invented for the last 30 years, and you say, wow, if I added digital ownership to that, does that make that game more fun? Pac-Man? Probably not. Zelda? Yeah, that'll probably be more fun with digital ownership. So I think that's a good way of looking at it.
And just to kind of paint a picture, Hearthstone, which is the largest digital trading card game, 15 million plus monthly active users, costs about $200 a year to stay competitive. You're taking 100% loss as a player. If you spend those $200 a year, you cannot transfer your cards, you cannot monetize that time, unless you're the top 1% who makes it to the tournaments at the top. So this is this is revolutionary to be able to play all night on a Friday night, and then on Saturday, take your girlfriend out to dinner because you sold a rare item in a game.
I'll add just one more element to this. This concept of a real money economy around a game is not a new concept. It's been tried several times. Diablo 3 had a real money economy. World of Warcraft had several gray market economies. A lot of the early crypto people were actually old World of Warcraft gray market economy people. The problem is, what's happened historically is the developer or the publisher does what they call nerfing. Nerfing is where you take a good gun, you reduce its stats, or you change its rules so you can't use it anymore. And so Diablo 3 just shut down the real money marketplace because they got pressure from a lot of their players and didn't like it. That was a business decision. I understand why they did it. They did it to please their players, maximize their profit. They have a legacy of Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 they had to live with. When a game creates NFTs or fungible tokens in their game for that matter, you can't turn those off. You are inherently saying this is a feature of the game. If the users complain, doesn't matter. You can't undo it. We can never stop somebody from selling our players in our baseball game. And that becomes a feature of the game. And so, even if a game that has a central server type of, a Forza Motorsports says, hey, we're gonna have a secondary market economy, you never really know if Microsoft might change the rules on you in 5 or 10 years. And then that inherently puts a cap on how much those items can ever be worth as collectibles.
So switching gears, Randy, you had one of the most mainstream partnerships the past few months with the MLB. Can you talk a little bit how that came about, and how long did it take to convince them of the benefits to really try this?
Yeah, I mean, out of all the sort of AAA licensors in the world, MLB's one of the most progressive, versus the other sports leagues, versus movie studios and whatnot. When we decided to get into this, we said we wanted to do something around collecting. This is before CryptoKitties, so there was no ERC 721 standard. We just looked at blockchain as this new way of creating digital scarcity, and we wanted to get into collecting and invent a game. We didn't really know what it was going to look like at the time. We decided we'd go out to sort of a short list of our top licensors. My partner and I were children of the 80s, so we remember peak baseball card, garbage pail kid collecting. Kids don't want physical tchotchkes anymore. They don't want physical crap. My business partner has a good story when he goes to Dodger Stadium and he gets a Sandy Koufax coin and gives it to his 16-year-old kid. His kid just gives it back to him and says, I don't want it, even though that thing could be sold for $50 on eBay. So, we approached MLB and we kind of explained to them what Bitcoin, we talked to them about. They were familiar. They'd really looked into a lot of blockchain stuff, for ticketing, and you're at an investor conference. There's 1,000 things that will be pitching a large multi-billion-dollar organization like MLB, and collecting really struck at they got that right away because it's a quintessential collector's brand. I mean, if you're explaining Bitcoin or CryptoKitty to my mom, you will inevitably invoke the term, baseball cards. You'll say, it's like baseball cards, there's scarce, there's only a certain number of them. People get that right away. So we thought baseball was perfect. The other really cool thing about sport is that you don't have to kind of come up with the artwork or the what makes it special, because every year there's something magnificent that happens in sports that can be memorialized in collectibles. So in that sense, we really like the idea of as opposed to trying to come up with the next beautiful artwork or the next beautiful CryptoKitty style game. Sports sort of writes its own narrative, and then the process of licensing was it's a regular license. I mean, it's just like you would give a license for an iOS app. Obviously, it's a lot more complicated from a legal and technology because it's new with blockchain, but it's all pretty straightforward stuff. When you really boil it down to it, what we're doing is not really that. To me, it's actually the most intuitive use of blockchain, the collectible space. Bitcoin with money, that makes sense to me. There's a lot of things I hear in the sort of ICO space doesn't always make sense to me. Collectibles is actually pretty straightforward. There's a digital item. It's your Mike Trout card. It's your Mike Trout statuette. Dodgers are in the World Series. If the Dodgers win the World Series, and there's a set of collectibles associated with that, there'll be somebody in the world who will value that, and so that's how it came about. And, we're really excited about it. We think it has applications in stadium giveaways. We did this giveaway at Dodger Stadium, giving people who are not crypto enthusiasts their first crypto through something that they actually care about, which is the Dodgers.
So it sounds like it took over a year, or about a year?
Yeah, no, it took over a year. When we started talking to them, CryptoKitties kind of came around through the process. The ERC 721 standard came in. Everything coalesced in a nice way through the process. But yeah, it took over a year, and again, I hope this breaks open the door for other licenses, because I think that where digital collecting becomes a lot more interesting is with brands with affinity. People care about Avengers, people care about Marvel. nobody cares, like your average consumer really doesn't care about EOS versus Tether versus Ethereum. That's not where the average consumer's at. The average consumer has the brands that they love. And I think gaming is a nice way of bringing that all together.
And they definitely don't care if it's so hard to actually get to the experience in the first place, right? So user onboarding is kind of, I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably our biggest problem right now to getting towards this next level of mainstream adoption. So can you guys talk a little bit about how you guys are approaching user onboarding with your games?
Okay, so what we see is that if I put you in a dark room for a number of hours, then when you go out, you'll be blind, right? So we think players now are blind because they've been in the dark room for so many years. So it's not a good time to try to expect too much of the audience that we're talking to. But in the long term, I think maybe in 10 years or maybe less, it will be common sense for players that are spending money inside a virtual world to be spending cryptocurrency. It will be the natural thing to do. And they will demand that the stuff that they're buying is a crypto collectible. So, and crypto collectibles are not the only thing about crypto in gaming. If you think about technology like the Lightning Network for Bitcoin, which is just starting out, is fantastic because if I want to build an MMO with credit cards, it's such a difficult thing to do, and it's only for the big players who have time for compliance and make a big deal, or or if you don't want to go that route, you have to use Google or Apple payments that will take 20%. Or if you think about doing stuff like using Stripe, that if you charge $1 for an item using Stripe, they will take 30 cents as a fixed fee, and when they will take a percentage of that transaction, you will end up with 1/3 of the total transaction for charging $1. Using Lightning Network in Bitcoin allows you to make allows players to make payments as low as 10 cents without commission. And sometimes some collectible items have that price. So I think in the long term, these technologies are just starting out. People don't understand the gas price. The gas price is not calculated accordingly sometimes, and there's just too much confusion, too much blindness. And I think this is something for companies to look for 5 years at least. So that's how we approach these things, building the best game we can make and not expecting anything soon.
I think there's a lot of companies that are skating towards this solution at the same time, you know, between Coinbase and the CryptoKitties guys and us and these guys. I think we will be providing this stuff for sale. Like this year between CryptoKitties and our games, it's all about going to Coinbase, get your Ethereum, put it in MetaMask, go through it. You know, it's a 15-step process that it's just not ready for prime time. But that's fine. I mean, this is early adopter. This is like pre-Netscape internet is how I like to describe it. It's like you can get on it and you'll have some fun, but it's you know, wait till Netscape kicks in and then boom, it's off to the races. And you know, I don't know, we're gonna sell our stuff in whatever format people want to buy it. If they want to buy it with fiat, I'm gonna sell it to them in fiat. If they want to buy it with Ethereum, they want to buy it with Bitcoin. So I'm not so like right now. This is a crypto product for crypto people. That's how all this stuff is. For us as a company, next year it is a product for baseball fans. So this year it was a product for baseball fans who also are Ethereum/crypto fans. Next year it's a product for baseball fans because I do believe for this to go outside of these halls, it is not what plasma sidechain are you on, what blockchain are you on, what lightning network you on. For the average consumer, it's just, can I sell it? Like, is this something that I own that I can actually sell? So that's where we're at, sort of. And we're all gonna evolve and do whatever makes our businesses successful. So I'm open to changing my opinion at any given moment over the next year.
I think we found that we hit this kind of weird spot. So like Cristian's talking about, you want to be careful about this bright light for gamers, but also on the crypto side, we found that with Alien Arsenal, so what do? We try to figure out where the friction points were. So it is the wallet, it's getting into crypto, right? You have to deal with exchanges and then tokens, and then on top of that, there's plugins that you have to use. And so we just sort of looked at those and tried to figure out, well, what are the big ones we gotta get rid of? So we let people have a wallet. As soon as they download the app, you get a wallet. We give you some of our tokens as a part of our space drop, because they're aliens. It's actually an airdrop. And then also, you have the ability to get your digital assets, which come in the form of aliens. So all this happens sort of right there for you. And we got folks on the crypto side who are like, how do I get my tokens? We're like, well, we gave them to you. Well, where's the plugin go? Well, you don't need one. So there's kind of this fine line you have to figure out. I think we could have benefited from more user testing on the crypto side. We're kind of building for gamers. So that's where you want to fall into an error, I suppose, if you're going to make a mistake. But the second part is that on the gamer side, we didn't do enough to make things smooth. So it is difficult to tell gamers why they should care about crypto, and that's sort of the big lesson that we took away from it. But that's sort of the first start. I think we heard today from Adam Draper, him talking about iteration and how crucial that is. That is something that you have to bake into your development process, and so you can learn from mistakes like that, iterate, and then do better the next time. So I think that's sort of the two pieces that we're thinking about when we think about how to solve some of the user experience usability problem, as well as user education. So it's just a matter of keep in touch with your users. And I think Steve Wozniak was talking about that too. It's focus on the use, and the things that you need to fix will percolate out, because the people who are using it are going to tell you.
We have time for a question or two. Any questions in the audience?
17 minutes.
Okay. You right here?
So in terms of the 721 standard, if you had to pick one feature that you would want to see in mainnet that would be added to it, what would it be?
I mean, for them to be cheaper to mint. If they were
Cheaper to mint,
if you
okay,
could-
1155.
Yeah, you could kind of do a large, kind of batch minting. When we did the 40,000 giveaway at Dodger Stadium, we I think took over 25% of the Ethereum gas over that time, and it took much longer. It was much more challenging than we thought it was going to be. Doing 40,000 of anything is a lot. So it would be nice if there was sort of a better way to just do that.
Yeah, and on your cards, are all of them unique?
Yeah, they were all the private keys were on each card, but being scratched over.
I would say layer one scaling solutions, so not having to rely on sidechains always to be able to scale Ethereum mainnet.
Well, there's also, I think, gas estimation is still experimental and difficult to understand. I'm not sure if it's being done right at this moment because I don't know. I think there's space for introduction of new algorithms for gas estimation. A lot of card generation that we have with players, they get cancelled out, or they pay too much or too little, and it's difficult to know exactly how much gas are you going to pay.
There was some discussion about player-driven economies, like in World of Warcraft and other earlier games. Are you actually trying to maybe design some crypto economic incentives around your games, or is that sort of an afterthought, or is it just kind of vary by title, or?
Yeah, we have a second game called Crypto Space Commander. MLB Crypto Baseball, it's a collecting game. It's based on the events of the game, but it's really a collecting game. Our other game, Crypto Space Commander, is like EVE Online. So if you're familiar with EVE Online, it's a user-controlled space MMO. one of the longest running. It's a very niche category, but the fandom is deep, very deep. So Crypto Space Commander has something like 10,000 people in the Discord, a very large fandom around it. And the idea is that you fly to a planet, mine your resources, look for crafting recipes, improve your ship, fly to a further planet. You're dealing with space, so you have the entire universe to expand the game. So that is very much a crafting RPG style, which I think crafting RPGs is a very good category, along with card battling games, a good category for blockchain gaming.
And if you think about it, gamers like to send money to each other. It's like if you have a streaming, there's people sending you money via tips. And wouldn't it be cool that if you're in an MMO and you find someone who is super fun or a good player that you can send money to inside the game? It's actually not possible in these modern MMOs. So you can see in Patreon, in Twitch, that players are sending money to each other. And it's something they're doing now. They will do more if they can do it inside the game, not using these web platforms.
Yeah, I have to apologize to everybody. I totally buried the lead. So one of the things that we're also working on is this development towards the manufacturing of the metaverse. And this was something that you couldn't really, for those that don't know, so if you read a lot of Neil Stephenson or a lot of cyberpunk, you've got William Gibson, so this is the digital landscape. And so you could never really do the metaverse before blockchains. And that's because what the blockchains do is they're actually like an external database. And so you can put stuff in this database that's persistent. And then something really cool happens once you do that. The games start becoming lenses through which you look at these assets on the blockchain. And so the assets begin to link the games together. And so for Alien Arsenal, you could say have planets. And these planets can also exist in Project Genesis, the same planet. Then on top of that, you can have that in we've got a partner title called Mankind Reborn, that's a cyberpunk MMO. And so those planets can exist in the MMO. So when you're talking about